Hi, everybody. Welcome to what I would call as reloaded of this conversation of by Batswadi magazine and this fantastic series that we've been doing just on different topics, parenting related topics. And I've really enjoyed it so far. If you've missed any of the subjects that we spoke about, make sure you go to the Batswadi magazine page. All of the conversations are there. You can also see on my page. And just get acquainted and just delve into some of these conversations that I think are just so important. The very first one we did was on navigating blended families. Many people find themselves in those situations, so very important. The second conversation we had was on unconventional parenting resources, and we spoke sleep therapists, lactation therapists, even finding somebody to help your baby poop. But today we're talking investment options for your kids. And I know that it's tough times for many people. We're feeling it with electricity, with the load shedding. We're feeling it with our gas. We're feeling it with the petrol. Everything has gone up and we're frustrated. But I think it's still very important, even if you're not in a position to do something today, we can share in the information. So Dr. Frank Magwegwe, who's a financial advisor, is joining us. And I think there's no such thing as a mistake, that the conversation couldn't happen yesterday. I think everything happens for a reason. But to put all of your questions that I will pose to the good doctor, just with regards to money and some of the things that we can do. Hi!
Hi, good evening, Relebogile. Can you hear me today?
I can hear. I'm so proud of you. You made it.
Well, let's just start by saying screaming and what is this? Screaming and kicking. You have brought me onto Instagram. For that, I thank you.
I am so proud of you for coming to Instagram. And I think after today's session, you're going to have some new followers that are going to be joining and asking you questions.
Yes.
But before we jump into it, please explain to everybody why you are the person to give us advice on investing for your child.
Well, I think, I think to start with, we have had awesome conversations in the past, Relebogile. But more importantly, I think for me, I'm so passionate about this topic because it speaks to my own growing up in a household where finances were not discussed. In fact, they were taboo, whether it was how much does rent cost us, to our parents, whether it was trying to figure out groceries, whether trying to figure out how do they budget. We just grew up not talking about finances. Let's just start there. Then, of course, because I know I shared that story with you and you laughed, that when I finished studying way back at VETS in 1997, I started working, and of course, today we call it black tax. But by then, I didn't think of it like that. But being a big family of 7, first one to get tertiary education, there was just an expectation that I would help my siblings. So between helping my siblings and also trying to show I'm moving up a little bit in the corporate ladder, I found myself struggling with debt. So much so that, believe it or not, I'm going to say it anyway because you've invited me on your platform. I found myself with what we call blacklisted for owing a bank money that I could not pay. And I vowed, as I struggled and worked my way out of that challenge between 1998 and 2003, I wanted to know more about money. I wanted to know more. How do I avoid it? How do I help others? So much so that when I solved that problem, I then formally started studying to be a certified financial planner, which I completed in around about 2010. And then I got so interested into it. I carried on all the way to 2020, where I got a PhD in financial planning. So I practice financial planning. I don't talk just theory. I have told you I experienced blacklisting. I experienced, black tax, growing up in a family where no money was discussed. So I have both practical experience of really what does it mean when we want to help kids and in general everyone change their financial behavior and understand money better. But of course, I have this extra advantage of having completed a PhD in financial planning, that I know some practical things that we can do that are based on research that will help financial behavior stick. So yeah, that's me. That's my
But also,
passion.
you forgot to say that you also are a father and you have children.
Of 2 daughters. And I struggle, thank you for reminding me, to get them to understand the importance of finances. They are now 22 and 19. But of course, when they were 7 and 10, I already had started. And we're going to delve into this. I'm so passionate about it. I started
Yeah.
specifically because I wanted to break the cycle. What is the cycle
Yes.
that I'm talking about? Of not discussing money with our children, of
Yeah.
them making the same mistakes that our parents made. So I vowed I need my kids to grow up financially literate. I want them to understand a little bit around money, around budgeting, around saving, unit trust, and all the wonderful stuff that we are talking about. I'm proud to say that they are now young adults. I can't speak for them, but I can certainly vouch for what I've done. I gave them strong foundation around monies, and I'm going to break it and give simple tools that I help my kids, and they have been using them for the last 15 years or so. And from what I can see, it does appear that they are okay, with managing their finances. So yes, there was also a drive of a father. And also, Relebogile, you just reminded me of something. Of course, we do know that women in general, and I've got 2 daughters, that there is, and this is research-based, a general tendency of saying finances are difficult, money is a little bit hard for me. If I have a partner, I'm going to delegate it to them. Let them just run with the finances. And of course, I must tell you, if you are doing that, and you're a woman, you're doing yourself a huge disfavor. It's got huge consequences of you not investing a little bit more in just trying to be okay with dealing with money. Don't need to be
Can
an
I
expert,
actually,
but you certainly
based
can't
on what,
just, yeah.
yeah, based on what you're saying, when I have a very vivid memory
Yeah.
being a child, when you talk
Yes.
about people not talking about money.
Uh-huh.
And at the time, remember, checkbooks were the thing.
Yes, of course.
And I remember being at the shops with my mom, and there was something I wanted. And
Yeah.
I'll never forget, I must have been 6 or 7 years old.
Yeah.
And she said to me, there's no money for it. So I
Yes.
said to her, write a check. Just write
Yes.
the check. And then, and isn't that so funny that at the
Absolutely.
time, I
Yes.
couldn't understand that there has to be money in the bank for you to write a check. And it was
Yes.
just this hilarious thing. But I think it speaks to, maybe the equivalent today would be that my child would say to me, just go on your phone and
Yes.
buy the thing. And I think that would be the equivalent if they don't understand the concept that when mommy works, money comes. And then when money comes, everything that you see is not free.
Correct.
Even electricity, because I as a child would just think water is free. I didn't know
Yes.
anybody pays for, like, we pay for
Yes.
water. Like, I couldn't
Uh-huh.
understand. So I think that's a very important point to start on, about normalizing having
Yes.
conversations about money, but also I would add normalizing, not being ashamed of where you are financially, because it also speaks to being able to say, guys, I know I'm the first of 7 kids, but I
Yes.
actually cannot afford. I can afford 300 Rand for
Yes.
us. What do you want to do with the 300 Rand? Because that's what's there. We don't know how to do that. And because,
Yes.
the black tax recipients, they
Yes.
only see you coming with groceries. They only see you topping electricity. They can't
Yes.
fathom that there's a bottom of the barrel of
Yeah.
this pool of money. So to them, it can just be a phone call to say, we don't have bread. But it didn't
Yes.
register that there's a cap, because you never
Absolutely.
said, my budget for you, mom, or whoever, is 500
Yes.
rands. And
Yes.
how would you like to use it? I suggest we do this, but what do you want to do with it? So when
Correct.
it's done, everybody knows pelili for the
Pelile.
month.
Yes. And of course, it's so beautiful. I really, really love where you started with your example. 6, mom, what's the story? Just write a check. because in preparation, the one point that I had made, and it's so beautiful, we're starting with it. I wanted to make the point that we often don't realize that from about the age of 5 or 6, children have a rough understanding of money. And you have demonstrated it, because you said to your mom, write a check. And this is research based. There's a lot of research that says kids around 5 and 6, between talking to their friends that they play with and observing what's happening in the household, and often being given money and being sent to the shops, accompanying an adult to the shops, quietly observing a transaction, the wallet comes out, some notes come out, they are given to someone behind the counter, that someone hands whatever the good that has been bought, bread, milk, cheese, yogurt, and then some change is given back, even though you might not say anything to them. Research tells us they are connecting the dots. They are saying there is something called money, right? Something happens when someone goes to the shops. Before they can get something, it seems like they give money, or it seems like they bring a card if you are using a card. So it's so beautiful you mentioned that, because this is where I wanted to start. It's never too early
to talk to your
introduce your kids, because they are already connecting the dots. So how wonderful is it for you as a parent, right? As an aunt, to help them connect those dots when you allow them to verbalize what they are seeing. Can you imagine just painting this picture to a 5, 6-year-old? Nana, tell me about money. I promise you, if you want to check what I'm saying, and of course now I am on Instagram, we can talk about it later. I promise you, you say to your niece, you say to your child, tell me about money, and you just keep quiet. They will say something around how they are thinking about it. So the first message we want to share this evening, it's never too late. They are already making their own conclusion.
Or
Please
never too
allow
early.
them to verbalize it.
Yes, never too early. Yes,
never too early. Sorry. Yes.
So one of the things, that I wanted to do the moment I found out I was pregnant, I was like, I need a plan for my child's future.
Oh, good for you.
I obviously discovered that you can't do anything for your child in their name until they're physically out of your body and have a birth certificate. So I wanted to start there, because I immediately was like, oh, I need to make sure my child. So when you are pregnant, if you find out you are pregnant, let's start there. You find out you're pregnant, and you need to put money aside. And I'm not talking medical bills or diapers. You are now like, okay, I want to start early planning for my child. Even if you can't open a bank account for your child, what can you start by doing that just says, I'm putting something away that is my child's money for their future?
What a beautiful question. And I like the word that you have used, because that's another message I want to share with the folks this evening. You mentioned planning. Planning. So critical when we talk about finances, right? So what we need to do as individuals, we must be honest with ourselves, right? Am I good at planning or not? So in other words, if I think of the language my kids would use, 22 and 19, do I suck at planning or not, right? So if you know you are good at planning, right, it's a little bit easier for you to say, I know my child is on the way, right? What do I need to plan for? So of course, there is the general, you're going to have certain costs associated with this bundle of joy coming into your life. Let's pack that. We know we can come back to that if we need to, that there's going to be cost associated with that. But the planning we are talking about is just to say, it's a fact that you are going to need money for your child to be at nursery, to be at a good school, a primary school, senior primary school, high school, and university. So when we are talking about planning, it's important to start early. So just the idea of the bundle of joy is coming if I look into my budget, right? And I don't like using big words without explaining them. Budget is simply a plan that tells you where your money is going. What are you spending your money on when you talk about budget? So you know on how you spend your money. In this time when the bundle of joy has arrived, could you possibly take out $100, 150 or 200 and start putting it aside? Because before you have their ID number, before they are born, you can't put money aside in their name. But certainly once they have arrived, there is nothing stopping you from opening an account, even for a 3 months old, 4 months old, 6 months old, doesn't really matter, with that ID number. And what you can start to do when you talk about planning, we are not talking about amounts. We are talking about establishing a habit that says, I've got this bundle of joy. I'm going to start with the little I can, 100 Rand. And as I can afford more, I will put more. I promise you, I started with, for my kids when they were also quite young. I looked when they were 18 and their unit trust accounts, they really had substantially grown. Imagine over 18 years of contributing. So the planning is not about having lots of money. It's just about the little bit that you can afford to put aside so that you have this habit of putting money aside. And of course, we can talk about where to put it. But the first thing is to have the idea. I'm going to put it in a bank account. I'm going to put it in a unit trust, for example, and we can unpack those later. But the first message, plan, the baby arrives, open an account as soon as you can. Again, I want to add in the planning thing, automate, automate, automate. I've said it 3 times. That means don't have the idea of, I will get to the end of the month, then I'll move the money from my current account into my child savings. It won't happen, guys. We know what happens for a majority of South Africans. Those debit orders run. I was there. I told you, 1998. They ran tung, 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 tung. After that, tololo. There is nothing to take for your child.
Yeah.
So automate, automate, automate means link your child savings account to your account. End of the month, it happens automatically. In other words, for you, put a stop order. I want 100 Rand to come out on the 25th of the month from my check account into my bundle of joys account. You don't have to think about it. It happens automatically.
And don't
You will
touch
be
your
surprised.
bundle of joys account. Don't touch.
Exactly.
It's not
Even
your
if you're in
money.
trouble. Yes.
It's not your money. And I want to
Correct.
acknowledge Sandy Koliswa, who says, I have a piggy bank that I have started since I found out that I'm pregnant in December.
Yes.
Congratulations. Every day I throw in any coins and 10 rands that I have in my wallet.
Music to my ears. Let me build on that. That is such a brilliant idea. Let me tell you why. Part of how we want to teach young people about money, 2, 3, 4, as I say, it's never too early, is the following. When you use the idea of a piggy bank, it's so powerful because a piggy bank is visible. Once there are 2 or so, you will be able to say, here is, and ideally start with coins, right? Give them some coins, and then you say, this is your money. Let's say 10, 15 Rand. Let's just make it easy. 15 Rand, 3, 5 Rand coins. They've got 15 Rand. What you want to start getting them to understand as a behavior is, when I get money, it doesn't matter where it comes from. There are really 3 things that I can do with money. I either can spend it, I can share it, or I can save it. Now, of course, you are seeing that it's not a coincidence that those start with S, because I call it the 3S formula for helping kids understand money. Save, spend.
Wait, why didn't
share.
you say, you said spend, share, or save? Why didn't you say, and mommy takes 5 Rand for black tax, so you know early?
I guess we could introduce them to
I
that.
must be SARS. I'm mommy, I'm SARS.
Yes.
I'm
That's
SARS.
such a brilliant idea, right?
Rand.
Yes. You could actually introduce them to that. Maybe we call it triple ST, 3ST. There's tech somewhere there. But coming back to the piggy bank, the beauty of that is then they've got their 3 coins, 5 Rand, 5 Rand. That's for 15 Rand. And then you say, Nana, S is for save. Please take one of these coins and go and put them in your piggy bank. Can you see how we are making a connection? You get money, you make 3 choices, and I physically take one, you put it away. And you also want to build on the idea that when it's full, and this is later on in life, we can take that to the bank, and then you can open a bank account for them as data, the starting savings that you can have. And there's so much excitement when they get their card, and all these banks have transaction, what you call them, fees free, zero fee accounts for children. So you start with piggy bank, you are introducing the S of saving. Then you move later, you take that full piggy bank, and later in life, can you imagine the joy, Relebogile, to say to them, I started when you were not even out. And then now look at you, you are 2.5. We are going to the bank. It's full. I'm opening a bank account for you. And for
can
this
I
might
make
look
you
like
laugh?
simple little things, right? Yes, absolutely.
So
These are practical things that they will remember.
Yeah. So I remember, and I'm very fortunate I had people that did speak to me about money at some point.
Wonderful.
I remember being 8 years old and a Bob T account was opened for me at FNB.
Bob T.
Do you know I still have that account kept getting upgraded.
Yes.
I still have the same account from when I was 8 and I'm now turning 37. The same account. And I still remember, my dad taking me to the bank and showing me how to withdraw. And I remember at some point he was explaining signatures to me and how you have to sign so people know it's you. And then I remember the next finance lesson I got was from my aunt. I know Ms. Krug says Bob T, guys, we are old. We are very old. Bob T was long ago.
She's not nearly as old as me, guys. Don't judge her. This is someone who just got on Instagram yesterday kicking and screaming. She is not as old as Frank Magwegwe, please.
Then the next time my aunt said to me, I need you to learn how to save. And I said, no, I've got an account. Which she said, no, I'm teaching you something else. And she said, she took me to Standard Bank. She said, here is 1,000 rands. I must have been probably 17 or 16 years old. She said, here's 1,000 rands. And she explained to me about a 32-day notice account. And she said, because when you put the money in, you can't just take it out. And she said, whenever you get money, just like hella biki and forget about it. She says, don't forget about it until one day you're going to look. So I'm fortunate I did have people that taught me when I was younger about those things. And I think the reason this conversation is so important is because we assume that people learned about money at home, and then we're surprised when people earn so much money and then they go broke, or because they don't understand, or they're not in the habit, like you said, they're not in the habit of putting money away. So to come back now to investing for kids, and here's my question. When a parent says, I'm investing for my child, for you, do you think of investing for your child as school fees money, or do you think of investing for your child as when they turn 18, this is their kitty? Because I told myself, I'm building my child's kitty. When he's 21, I will say, what do you want to do with your life? Do you want to deposit on an apartment? Here's your kitty, the money. But I am not thinking investment in terms of education. I've told myself that education, I need to continuously work for, and hopefully I don't find myself in a situation where I have to go to his kitty. So clarify for us, what is investing for your child? Does it count if you're putting money away, for education? Or does investment mean this is that inheritance that we wished our parents had given us? This is that inheritance that the white kids at school, had their inheritance.
Lovely. Before I answer that, let me just quickly build on a theme that you mentioned, then we're going to get to that. They are linked. So we talked about it's never too early. We talked about planning, and you brought one of how do kids learn about money. So we have just said, you mentioned it yourself, your parents played a role, uncles, aunts played a role. And I want to bring out an important message here. You can see it involves time. It doesn't cost you money. It's 5 minutes here, it's 10 minutes there. of sitting with your child and talking to them. And of course, not only your child, talk to your nieces and nephews as well. So I'm highlighting it's an investment in time. You must be prepared to help them build that habit, taking them to the bank, mentioning about saving, and basically making sure you give them space to dialogue with you around money. So that's how kids learn. You want to role model it, you want to talk, plus they also observe on their own, right? Let's then move to this important question. We need to define first, what does it mean to save? And what does it mean to invest? Because we get in so much trouble when we confuse the two. When we talk generally from a financial planning perspective about saving money, we're simply saying you are putting money aside. You are not spending it. That's an easy way to explain it. Instead of spending it, you are saving it. You're putting it aside, right? It could be in a savings account, a simple savings account. It could even be in a 32-day, a 90-day deposit, as an example, right? The most important thing to understand is you don't have as your primary focus growing the money. In other words, your primary focus is not taking risk so that it grows. You just want to say, I'm not spending, I'm putting it aside. If an emergency comes, I'll be able to take from it and use it. Okay? So you are not spending, and your primary focus is not, I want to grow it, so I want to take risk. Let's pack that. Let's move to investing. By definition, when we talk investing, we're actually saying we want to take some risk. In return for taking that risk, we want our money to grow. Let's take the example that people often understand well. And this example is investing in shares or a unit trust. We know shares at the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, they go up and down. Every day, something is happening to them. War in Ukraine, inflation is going up, the Reserve Bank has increased interest rates. We know if you invested in some shares, the value of those shares or prices are going to go up and down, right? Do you see the risk? You could buy a share for 10 Rand, and then it may fall to 7 Rand, or it may go to 13 Rand. That's what I mean by risk, right? Why is it important to understand the difference? When you are taking risk, you are saying to yourself, I've got a reasonable period of time. Ideally, we want it to be 3 years, where I buy that share as an example, or a portfolio of unit trusts. Even if they fall in price at the end of first year, for example, I don't need the money. I don't have to liquidate and take a loss to access that money. That's an important principle. When you want your money to grow, you take risk. And that risk, we usually want you to take it over a 3-year period, at least a minimum. So let it grow over a period of at least 3 years, because share prices go up and down. Now, you understand, saving is just the opposite of not spending. Investing is about taking risk and wanting it to grow. And sadly, folks, we sometimes take risk in the wrong places. Triple M, that is taking risk. Pyramid schemes, you want to grow your money. Unfortunately, those things don't work. Forex trading, you are taking risk. Sometimes it doesn't work, you lose your money. I'm just trying to get you to understand when we take risks. Now, let's come back to the beautiful question. When we are thinking about our child, what is it that we want to do? Well, let me give an example as a dad, what I did. So I am in the camp of Relebogile here because I say to myself, you know what? Fortunately, I've got a good job. I'm going to hold on to it, and I will fund my children's education, primary, secondary, tertiary, from my pocket. I'm putting aside money. That's the savings part I'm talking about. And I will take that money, pay school fees. That's a separate thing. Then I put money for them in a few of the asset management companies. We're talking the Allen Grays, the Investex, for example, the Sanlams of this world. There are so many, the 10Xs. There are so many of them, the Satrixes of this world. Then there I was taking risk. I did not touch that money, and I am so proud to tell you, since I started, I think there were probably 5 and 2, and now 19 and 22. Never done a withdrawal since. Can you imagine how much in those accounts, right?
Yes.
And for me, that is what we are talking about when we say, for me, it's, oh, Nana, you now want to buy a car. Let's now take from that investment I did for you from when you were 3, and we put deposit for a car. We put deposit for a house. So I took risk. I invested it in shares to make it grow. And I am not touching it for their school fees. Of course, you might not always be able to afford having those two pots, right? But it's important to understand the concept that you might want to put a little bit for investing, taking risks so that it grows. And that's their money when they're 21, when they're 18. I'm setting them up in life. Then there's another one I'm saving, the opposite of spending. I'm going to take from there if you have to and pay fees from there and do stuff from there. So not only for your children, folks, we also saying for you, please understand saving and investing. I've come across people say, I will never put money in my unit trust ever. And I say, what happened? They say, I lost a lot of money. I say, tell me more. Oh, I bought some unit trust. Then I needed money in 6 months' time. You won't believe it. I sold them and I lost money. I said, duh. You are supposed to invest in a unit trust if you had a 6 month time horizon. Please, that's very important to understand.
Yes, yes. So, okay, and I think those definitions are very clear. We
Yes.
also recognize that, not everybody's at that level where
Correct.
they are able to even consider unit trust because they're living paycheck to paycheck. But the
Correct.
purpose of this conversation is not to say you need to be at this level to know.
Correct.
You need to aspire to being at the level where now you can say, yes, I've got savings, which I know I can dip into when I need to, or my emergency fund, but there is a portion I can put aside that can be put up for risk so that there is some reward over long term. And the idea is not to touch it. And can I share with everybody that you told me that when your daughters turned 18, you said to them, here are your shares, but you can't catch them out.
Oh, I nearly cried because it was big amounts of money. And there I get a message from one of these investment management companies. You all see them advertising. And they say to me, Dr. Magwegwe, your kids have now turned 18. It is their money now. Please complete the following forms and you hand over the money to your kids. And it's up to them if they want you to remain on that account so that you see what's going on. I nearly cried because I was just thinking, oh my goodness, what about if they misuse this money, right?
Yes.
And so here's a message. At 18 in South Africa, what happens is they are at a legal age to take over. It is now their money. You are looking after it on their behalf all the way from a year old up to 18. And banks, any of these financial institutions will send you forms, and then your kids, they are now responsible for that, right? Of course, what you can do is what I did. I then asked my daughters if I can remain on the account and I can log on, I can give them a little bit of advice, what's going on, and just kind of partner them in helping, that money to grow. But that's so important to understand that at 18, kind of there's that handover. However, what gave me comfort was, but I've been teaching them a lot. This is actually time for me to breathe easy because I have been teaching them all along, around managing money also. This is where, to use this famous South African expression, what we say, this is where the techie is the tar. Now they've got hundreds of thousands of rand. That's what's in their account.
Wow.
There is it, hundreds of thousands of rand. You managing it. I put it aside for you. When you need that deposit, as Relebogile says, to buy a car, please, it's not coming from me. It's coming from there. When you need that deposit for a house, it's coming from there. Please look after it wisely. So it's empowering, in that sense. And it's breaking, as we say, the cycle. It's introducing them to managing money. I just want to stop here and say, we know on this call, we've got folks from all walks of life. Here's a message I have for you. And take it from someone who was blacklisted before. That's why I like saying that story. Who was struggling with black tax, went on all the way to be a CEO at one of the big financial services company, a chief operating officer, which means earning, good monies. So I've seen both, not having money and being okay. The one thing I have learned on this call, if you are thinking, hey, he's talking with this guy who put lots of money for his kids. It's not about the amount. It's about the habit. And how do we build this habit? I want to give you a positive psychology trick for putting money aside for kids that helps. Habits are very difficult to put in place. They're very difficult. because the today is demanding us to spend, and sometimes we may genuinely be struggling. Things are going up, cost of living, inflation, transport, fuel, food, right? I want you to remember this. One of the ways you can use to put money aside for your child, it's closing your eyes, envisaging, see, I'm even doing it now, envisaging a future for them that's different from the one you had as a child. I want my child to be financially literate. I want my child to have a good relationship with money. I want my child to have a little bit of something when they start out in life. Even if they use it to buy washing machine, they use it to buy appliances, for their flat when they move in. So close your eyes and think of that wonderful future. When you do that, when you bring yourself to today, that picture is so strong in your mind. And often you say, no, Maganjani, I'll put 150 aside. I want my child to have that. So we have heard of vision boards, for example. We have heard of projecting a future self, right? So what I'm saying to you folks is, you need a strong vision and purpose. And why? Why do I need to do this for my child? When that why is strong, even 50 bucks you've got it, you put it aside for them. Even 100 bucks, it's not about them. You build that muscle. What is that muscle? Is the habit of putting money aside for your child. So please don't think, oh, I have nothing, so this talk is not for me. I can't even put anything. No, no, no. It's for everyone on this call. Build this muscle of putting money aside, this habit. You can start with a small amount. Envisage a better future for your child. Of course, you can do it in your own life. Envisage a better future when you're managing money well, and then you can use that picture in the future to change habits today.
Okay, so let's jump into how we invest. You've mentioned
yes,
unit trusts.
Yes.
And now to clarify for those of you that have just joined, we're jumping to the part of the conversation. It's not about saving, which is the money that you might dip into or touch to use. We're talking about investing. It's the money you're putting aside that will carry some risk in hopes that it will grow over a long period of time. So we're pretty much talking something that is you are patiently waiting for. So when we say short-term investment versus long-term investment, what are those time frames that make up short-term and long-term? And if you are saying, okay, short-term investment, maybe there's something specific that you want to do for your child, call it 5 years, 10 years. What would you say the short-term routes are the good ones to go and the long-term routes?
So when we talk as financial planners, short term is any period less than 3 years. So when we talk short term, we're putting money aside. Short term, we're talking a period of less than 3 years. And we are essentially saying during that period, the reason why we want you to have a period greater than 3 years is that we know share prices go up and down. Think of now what's happening. Share prices are falling, right, in the market because of the war in Ukraine, increasing food prices, interest rates are being increased across the globe by central banks, for example. The consumer doesn't have a lot of money, right, as you all know. So as a result, some companies are not doing as well. So we see their share prices falling. Now, just want to give a tip on the side as well. We all love a sale, right? So I'm sure you've heard, just joining Instagram now that I'm an oldish type of guy. So I grew up knowing red hanger sale. I mean, please don't laugh at me. We used to go to red hanger sale. And the point I'm talking about a sale is we love going and buying things on a sale because the prices are reduced. I want you to think of share prices when they are falling in the market. We'll get to unit trusts. They are very much closely related to share prices. When prices are falling, I just want you to have a picture. It's a sale of unit trust. It's a sale of shares. If you have a little bit of extra, please buy more because they are going to recover. And in 3, 5, 10 years, you reap the benefits. Right? So just another idea we are sharing. When you have a bit of extra money, share prices are falling, think of it as a sale of these investments and you can buy more. So we said 3 years. That's what we call short-term in financial planning. Greater than 3 years, we talk about it as investing. We are focusing on options to invest. In other words, where can you take risk to put money aside for your child that you are not going to touch and you want it to grow? Where do you put it? When? Let's start with where you don't put it. We're talking investing, therefore. You are not putting it in a bank savings account. You are not putting it in a 32-day deposit, 90-day deposit account, right? Because those, yes, they give a little bit more interest than your check account, but nowhere near investments where you take risk, nowhere near share prices. So we are limited to products that have a little bit more risk, but as you know, more risk also comes with possibility of higher returns. So where do we put our money? We put our money in products that have shares. Right now, you might be wondering, what is a share? Let's quickly break it down. A share is part ownership in a company. Woolworths, one of the favorite retailers in South Africa, the company is listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. You can buy a part ownership in Woolworths. Tomorrow, you can do it. And that part ownership is called a share. You can
But
do the same for
you
SPAR.
can't fire the cashier because you have one share.
Yes, please don't. Yes, yeah, don't cause trouble because you have one share. We're gonna come why it's important to buy shares as you begin in brands that you know. SPAR, you can do the same. Pick and Pay, you can do the same. The big banks, they're all listed. You can have a part ownership in them. You have a share. So please don't feel someone is talking about shares at a price and they sound so clever and knowledgeable and they're saying, I don't know. No. A share is just part ownership in a company, like as we say, Woolworths, Pick and Pay, SPAR, Standard Bank, Nedbank, right? Now that we know what a share is, part ownership, we can buy a share and share prices up and down, up and down, up and down, they move. That's the risk that we are talking about. So generally, when you are beginning out, you don't have expertise in which share must I buy. Let's give an example. Vodacom is listed. MTN is listed. How do you know which one to buy? Which one has the possibility in 3 years or more to grow? In other words, to have its share price increase more. Very difficult to tell. Standard Bank, ABSA. How do you know which one, right? That is why there are people who spend all their time. They learn about investment. They have professional qualifications. That's their full-time job, analyzing shares and deciding which one to buy. So when you start out, it's a good idea to rather go for investment products that have shares as underlying. What are those? We call them unit trust. That's one of them. What is a unit trust? It's simply a portfolio of shares. In other words, when you say portfolio, it's just going into a product that an asset manager has thought about, or an investment manager, they also call that. And it might have 10 shares, it might have 20 shares, but as you know, our grannies grew up telling us that. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. That is what a portfolio manager is doing. Little bit of gold shares, little bit of banking shares, little bit of telecom shares, little bit of technology, energy, mining, and mining, you can split it, gold mining and platinum mining, for example, right? So a good way to start is to invest in unit trust because they have shares as underlying. Other products, they also at the core have shares, right? Which grow more in the long term. Is things called exchange traded fund. They are exactly similar to unit trust in the concept of underlying them. It's a portfolio or it's a number of shares, right? And you are assuming a little bit of risk when you invest in them. And there are so many of them because there are so many different types of companies on the stock exchange, right? But the bottom line is, we're saying to you, you're investing for your child's education, 3 years or longer. You don't need that money in the short term. Please consider investing in products that, or investment vehicles that have shares. Now you might be wondering, do I need thousands to be able to do that? No, you don't need thousands. They go from as little as 100, 150 a month. Some minimum is 300 rand a month. In other words, we are saying to you, every month, you...
Oh, doctor, we lost you. Your audio's gone. I can't hear you anymore.
Okay,
just repeat the last sentence. You said every month?
Every month, 100 rand, 150 rand, or 300 rand can come out of your account into this portfolio of shares, whether it's an exchange traded fund, whether it's a unit trust, doesn't really matter. But you are consistently putting aside money that's going into an investment because it's taking risk, and it will grow over time for your children. And that's what I did for my daughters, what I was talking about, right? Predominantly in portfolios of shares. And I'm emphasizing, again, it's a habit, because you can start with 200 Rand a month. You don't need 10,000 or 20,000 to get started. And of course, you must have the discipline of, don't sell those unit trusts, right? Don't touch them ideally, unless when you get into serious financial problems, right? Because then they can grow nicely over time for your kids.
So when we talk the long term, because now short term is less than 3 years, what would long term look like?
So long term, we are saying longer than 3 years. So ideally for shares, we are saying the minimum is 3 years. When you are investing, the word you mentioned earlier, there is my opportunity to use it now, patience. You are patiently waiting for the stock market, right? Where we buy shares, which are what goes into unit trust, what goes into exchange traded fund. You patiently wait for them to grow over time, right? So we are talking 5 years, we are talking 10 years of just patiently putting the money. And I'm telling you, one day you look and you will be surprised. Let me give you a quick example that we use as financial planners. We say, roughly, if, for example, you are putting money aside and the growth, sometimes called investment returns, or sometimes people like to think of it as interest that is on this portfolio, in 7 years, 8 years, it's quite possible, if you are getting about 10% or so per year, to double the money that we have in the portfolio. So it really grows faster than money sitting in a bank. You are benefiting from something called compound interest. The idea that if you have 100 Rand, right, and it's getting 10%, at the end of 1 year, it's now 110, right? 10 Rands interest on 100. The following year, you get 10% on 110, it becomes 121. The following year, that's how it's wonderful to invest in shares, because your money grows. You're doing your job. You're going to work every day. You're doing what you need to do quietly. You are growing your child's investment. You will just be surprised how it has grown over time, because you are patient, right? And patience means 3, 4, 5 years. That's the time horizon as a minimum that you are thinking about. And so, I must also add, maybe, please also do your research, right? You see, I'm emphasizing shares here. I'm emphasizing unit trust, because that's what we know over time. We understand companies do well, they make more profit, shares grow up. If you are being tempted, and you can think of the same as property, you know, malls, office blocks, companies that invest in that are also listed on the stock exchange. You can buy property unit trust, you can buy shares of property companies. So they are similar. I just want you to be extra careful when you think of Bitcoin trading, when you think of Forex trading. Those come with a lot of risk, and you need to talk to a qualified financial professional if you want to invest in those for your child's investments.
So at what point while you are investing for your child, under what circumstances would you need to move or cash out shares to change it for something else? Because maybe whatever you pinned your hopes on, after years, it's now, we're talking, it's 50% less than what you've put in. So what are the signs that say this is a bad investment, switch before you lose everything?
Oh, what a lovely question. So I'm going to answer this question as follows. Every single person on this call this evening, and I know this for a fact, when they have problems with their teeth, they go to a dentist. When you have problem with your eyes, you go to an optometrist. You don't try to fix your own eyes. You don't try to fix your own teeth if there's a problem. When you have a cold and you have tried over the counter, it's not working, you go to a doctor. Why am I saying this? There is a misperception that I will do investments on my own. For all other things that need professionals, I'm going to go to professionals, right? You don't build your own house most of the time, unless you're a qualified builder. You don't fix your own plumbing. You get a plumber. For some reason, society thinks, if it's investment, I'll just do it on my own. So the point I'm making is, it's so crucial what you have asked that question, Relebogile, to say, how do I know this is not working out? It looks like I'm losing this investment. It's a wonderful thing to work with a financial advisor. Every year as a minimum, you review your investments. We look at what's happening in the world. What's happening to oil price? What's happening to gold price? What's happening to gold shares? What's happening to construction shares, right? And through those regular reviewing of the financial plan, almost think of you've got an investment plan for your child, right? And so with the guidance of a trained professional, you'll be given advice to say, maybe we need to increase our exposure to mining companies. Oh, you know what? Food retailers are doing so well. Let's put more money in food or in clothing retailers, as an example. So just like we seek professionals for many things in our life, I really would like to add to you folks this evening that please find yourself a reputable, well-qualified financial advisor who's really interested in your overall finances, right? Including those of your child. And that's the person who can hold your hand and guide you on put a little bit more money, move it from here, get it there. So a review regularly of the plan. Let me quickly throw this in. Do you know, folks, that in South Africa, research tells us the average family spends less than 11 minutes. Please, you did not hear me incorrectly. Let me repeat, 11 minutes a month looking at their finances. Guys, how much
less than 11 minutes
11 minutes. Yes, not a day, not a week, a month. We just, as South Africans, and of course, it's also a global trend, people just don't put enough time aside to just say, let me look into my bank account. Are there funny debit orders? Let me look in my short-term insurance. Let me look in my short-term investment, my emergency savings. Let's look at what's happening for my child. That whole regularly just checking what's happening, having a financial plan that drives what we work so hard for our money. Yet we don't have 11 minutes a month. How much time do we spend on our favorite program? And I'm not judging here. I'm just asking you to look at other areas. Do you spend 11 minutes or not? If you spend more, I'm asking you, for your child's sake, we are focusing on your child. Please put time aside to just say, I want this child, the vision that you spoke about here, to have a very different life from me. I'm going to invest time a month, and I'm going to give you a name for this. Please have a date with your money. Have a date. You set time aside a month, and you're thinking about your money. You work hard for it. Is it doing what you want it to do for you? Are you saving? Are you investing for your kids, for your family, and that sort of thing? Please, that's so important for us. Again, we spoke earlier, it's a habit.
Yes.
And it's about starting that date with your money. Before you know it, just like anything else, as it becomes easier, you actually quite look forward to it. The unit trust statements are coming up, and you see what's going on with your money. You're checking your bank statements, and so on and so forth. It just becomes a habit. But you got to start somewhere. Have a date with your money, and think about your kids' investment.
Doctor, this always happens to us that we run out of time. And
I can't believe it. Where did the time go? But we did cover a lot of ground.
We did.
We laid a strong foundation.
And I want to encourage everybody, because I fortunately, got introduced to Frank through my radio work, and he has been advising me.
I'm your private financial planner.
You are my son's private financial planner. And
how awesome is it to have a celebrity son as my client? I'm honored.
and the main thing that I shared, with you, Doctor, is how I want to gift my son just with, a birthday gift every year.
Let's finish off on that. Yes.
Future. So Mama Berries here is saying, I'm so eager to have a second child. I'm just anxious due to finances. And I want to say to everybody before our call ends now is, start where you are with what you have. And
Correct.
I think the biggest thing is, I have a friend who went through terrible financial challenges, similarly to you. Fortunately, before the blacklisting, was able to do debt review, and it forced her to look at her financial situation.
Correct.
So all of you, I would encourage you Start
Absolutely.
by asking yourself, where am I?
Where
Then
are
when
you?
you start with, yes, where am I? Allow yourself to dream. It doesn't matter how crazy it sounds. Allow yourself
Correct.
to dream, because
Correct.
things will change, and
Yeah.
then make those small little changes. Even if you start with just that piggy bank and the
Yes.
2 rands, like
Yeah.
it is something. And I think that's what I want to leave everyone with.
Oh,
Doctor,
how
what do you want to
beautiful is
leave
that?
everyone with?
Yes, and so I am a testimony to that. 98 to 2003. Terrible finances, blacklisted, struggling. But here am I, have recovered and can tell a story of where I've come from. I want to finish off on this. And it's so wonderful because we're talking about investing for kids. One beautiful way of doing that is when you have their birthday, and it also allows for the dialogue. It is a very good idea to a portion of what you want to give them for their birthday. Please consider giving it to them as an investment in their unit trust, in their portfolio of exchange traded fund, and you dialogue with them. As they grow older, like I used to do, you get the statement and you show them, do you see how your money is growing? What a wonderful gift of giving a gift that will grow with time. Yes, there's nothing wrong with a toy and an awesome birthday party. We all need that. But please consider, this is my parting word, a small portion. When you give your child, your niece, your nephew a present, please consider a small part of it in an investment such as a unit trust that grows in time. What a wonderful gift that will help them manage money better as they go into their young adulthood.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Guys, Dr. Frank Magwegwe is officially on Instagram. Follow his account. It is right here. And I'm so excited. Feel free to DM him if he has the time. He will, which I know he will make the time. He will give
I'm
you
gonna do that,
advice.
yeah.
Thank you for this insightful conversation, Doctor. I
It was
so
wonderful.
appreciate
Thank you
it.
for the opportunity.
And thank you, of course, to Batswadi Magazine for hosting
For
this
making it
series that
happen,
we're
yes.
doing. Yes.
Lovely.
We will have one more session left, and that is going to be happening next week, Wednesday at 7 p.m. Stay tuned to the Batswadi Magazine page and mine, where I'll share what we're talking about and who our guest is. Doctor, as always, an honor.
Awesome.
If you
Thank
joined the
you.
conversation late, don't worry, it will be up on the Batswadi Magazine page
Yes.
and my page, so you can watch from the beginning. Doctor,
awesome. And thank you to Batswadi for increasing financial education and financial literacy in our country. Awesome. Thank you.
Amanga.
Yeah. We're doing our
Bye,
bit.
guys.
Nice. Cheers, cheers, everyone.